definitely wants to go to Arsenal. We kind of know that anyway, because he's kind of intimated privately to Newcastle United that if, and it's a big if, Arsenal meet a price that they are comfortable with, that they feel is his valuation, he would be open to speaking to them and open to joining them. He doesn't want to be that player who is in the Isak scenario where he's not going to go on strike, he's not going to do any of that. He understands the position that Newcastle United are in. I would expect Arsenal to make some sort of formal move sooner rather than later on this, because it's gone so far down the line behind the scenes for it not to go anywhere. So it's clear the player wants to go and Arsenal want him. The problem Newcastle United have got is, well, on the positive side, he's under contract. They're under no pressure to do any business. But again, the will of the player. And if he really wants to go, then Newcastle United are going to have a decision to make.
Yeah, interesting one to watch. Does he think Arsenal are the biggest club in London? I know Morgan Rogers thinks it's Chelsea, but just wondering if they'd asked him that question as well.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, that's going to follow him around now, isn't it? I mean, Arsenal played Chelsea,
very early on, September 5th, I think it is,
Yeah. Is that second game of the season, is
Third game.
Third game
so
of
Arsenal
the season.
have got Coventry, Villa, and then Chelsea. So, yeah.
I mean, he can probably get a bad reception from the Arsenal fans for saying that. I don't think he can get a bad reception for not going to Arsenal, because it's kind of out of his hands, because Arsenal could have signed Morgan Rogers, but they decided we're not going to meet that valuation. So,
there we go. And Sam, just wanted to touch on, as Dharmesh was saying, lots of names being linked, but a couple that jumped out to me. John Stones potentially on a free. Ezri Konsa as well, linked with a move. It would be a real blow for Villa to lose him as well on what's turning into a quite difficult summer for them in many regards. But just maybe some signs that Arsenal may also look to pick up some deals in the defensive areas, which, they've not made a bit of a habit of, haven't they, really, under Mikel Arteta, strengthening that back line at any opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of people say that Mikel Arteta likes a left back, and those two aren't quite left backs, but you do definitely.
He likes a centre back who can play fullback.
Exactly.
It's his ideal signing.
Absolutely, but it feels like those two positions are slightly perilous given the Saliba situation. You also have to remember that Arsenal's two right backs, Jurrien Timber and Ben White, don't have the best injury record themselves. You can't put your hand on your heart and say you fully rely on them to play 35 games out of the 38 Premier League games that are coming up next season. Summer of 2020, they were linked with John Stones. They were linked with Bruno Guimaraes as well. He ended up going to Newcastle. So it's funny how all this works out. But it seems like with a lot of these moves is that these are long-standing targets. Solis is maybe the exception, where that's an up-and-coming player who's sort of come up on the radar on the scouting team. But it looks like a lot of these moves are sort of based on Mikel Arteta's knowledge of the Premier League going back years and years and years.
He really puts a lot of value in Premier League experience, doesn't he? I think that's clear from Arsenal signings in recent years. Konsa is certainly someone who has that. Obviously, Stones as well. The Konsa one is interesting, isn't it? Because we know Mikel Arteta loves a player who wins his duels. We know that Mikel Arteta is upset when he loses a duel. Ezri Konsa, here's a stat for you, had the best ground duel success ratio in the Premier League last season. 73% of his ground duels won. I think he does tick a lot of boxes for Arteta. He's very combative, good in 1v1s, and can play right back, centre back. I think the issue there is probably the valuation that Villa have put on him. Maybe that's a bit more than Arsenal willing to pay, but another interesting one to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, absolutely loved by Villa fans. Sam, we were talking about sort of the curative areas and how Arsenal use the ball. Just wanted to get thoughts from you on a few of the youngsters who we've seen over the past couple of seasons. Even Ranieri, 19 years old now. He didn't have a great loan spell in Marseille in the second half of last season. Obviously, Max Dowman, the thrills and excitement that he brought last season at 16 years old, and that goal against Everton. And obviously, Miles Lewis-Skelly, who looked like he was out of the picture after that previously promising season. And then he sort of battled his way back into the team and was there for the Champions League final as well, wasn't he? Again, 19 years old. So these young players that we've got excited about over the recent times, where do they stand going into this season? Can they play a meaningful role for Arsenal in this coming year?
Well, it's really interesting that the big one that stands out is Nwaneri. What do Arsenal do? Do they stick or do they twist? Now, Nwaneri's going to be very interesting in the Bukayo Saka side of things. Obviously, we've seen that Bukayo Saka can't really train 2 days in a row at the moment. We saw that with Arsenal. We saw that with England at the World Cup. And if Saka needs a bit of time to get back up to full speed and get back up to 100% over the summer, maybe Nwaneri is a player who maybe acts as a bit of cover alongside Madueke and alongside Max Dowman as well. The other thing with Nwaneri is that Arsenal, as we've said, they don't currently have many players in pre-season at the moment. So that's going to be a real opportunity for Nwaneri to maybe start in Odegaard and Eze's position and say, look, this is what I can do. Yeah, I didn't have a good time at Marseille last time. I think Mikel Arteta actually said he maybe regretted letting Nwaneri go because Marino got injured a few weeks later and Havertz took a little bit longer to come back from injury as well. Obviously, they sent him there to work with Roberto De Zerbi, and he left Marseille a few weeks later and is now coincidentally at Spurs. But the other thing with Nwaneri is Dowman's there. And do you really want to halt Dowman's progression by playing someone who's so similar? He plays on the right, he plays as attacking midfielder. That is a big issue there. So what do Arsenal do? Do they cash in on maybe Nwaneri, who's maybe doesn't have Dowman's ceiling? And then Lewis Skelly is the big conundrum. As you rightly said, there were actually links with him to Manchester United and whether he would solve United's left-back issue at the moment. But then he had that resurgence in central midfield. But then what if Arsenal go and sign Bruno Guimaraes? Then your central midfielders are Guimaraes, Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, Mikel Merino. They're all massively important and valued by Mikel Arteta. Do you then go, then what do you do if you're Miles Lewis-Skelly? And then you've got Christian Norgard to think about as well, who's also in the mix and sort of waiting on the sidelines. So difficult decisions to come out. I don't know if you have any sort of transfer updates.
I mean, Nwaneri's definitely going to be one to watch.
Yeah.
Because for Arsenal to start the season, last season, for him to sign a new contract and then go out and buy Noni Madueke, I think Nwaneri probably would have accepted, Saka's number one, fine. I can play back up to Saka. I'll get games. I'll get plenty of them because there's so many competitions. But then when Madueke comes in and he's clearly going to be ahead of Nwaneri, he must have thought, what is going on here? So the loan, on the face of it, was the right thing to do for all parties. Didn't work out as he would have liked and would have expected. And he's probably watching on almost enviously while Max Dowman is taking all the plaudits, when we were actually talking about Ethan Nwaneri before Max Dowman in the same way, weren't we? We
Absolutely,
were like, this guy is going to be
the wonder kid,
the one that comes through.
Yeah.
So the other interesting point to be made about players like Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly, homegrown, and there's pure profit to be made on these players. That's when the decision makers have to say, if you want to go big in the market and maybe buy a Bruno Guimaraes or maybe go in for someone like Alex Scott, maybe, dare I say it, try and get Julian Alvarez or anyone else that's going to cost big money, there's going to have to be sales as well. I think we accepted that from the start of this transfer window because last summer they kept that squad together, but they knew that they wouldn't be able to, they'd be able to spend that same amount of money provided there were sales this time.
Yeah.
So there are going to be some outgoings at Arsenal.
It feels like there's so many subplots and potential transfers this summer, Nick, around Arsenal. Last summer it was very much about the number 9 and getting Gyökeres in. What was your verdict on him last season? Did he sort of silence the critics? Did he prove that he's the solution up there in tandem with Kai Havertz when fit and available? 21 goals in 55 games in all competitions for Gyökeres.
I mean, it's a decent return, isn't it? I think probably people still have doubts. He seems to be someone who splits opinion, doesn't he? I mean, some people want him starting every game. Some people think maybe that's not the best idea. I mean, I think he probably played more than was expected, didn't he? Just because of the fact Kai Havertz was unavailable so often. I think when Kai Havertz was fit, Mikel Arteta usually picked Kai Havertz. I think probably Havertz is still ahead in the pecking order at number 9. I think he's a much more complete footballer than Victor Gyökeres. Gyökeres obviously does give you certain qualities. I think he was very useful against the kind of lower ranking Premier League teams. He scored a lot of goals in those games, and Arsenal had a lot of problems scoring goals in those games in the previous season. You know, that was kind of their an issue they had. They struggled to put those games away, and Gyökeres did help in some instances with that. I think probably Arsenal still feel they need more firepower, though, don't they? I mean, I don't think anyone is under any illusions there. Julian Alvarez is clearly someone they love. We've been talking about Morgan Rogers. I mean, clearly there is work to do on that attack. So if you're going to ask, has Victor Gyökeres solved their problems? I don't think you can say yes, because I still think that attack needs to be kind of levelled up. So it will be really interesting to see what happens there. The Julian Alvarez one is interesting, isn't it? Because as much as Arsenal want him, it seems like a very, very difficult deal to do in a lot of different ways.